Hello, you're watching TVP World News. I'm Jan Ślewiński. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy has arrived in Florida ahead of his meeting with Donald Trump on Sunday evening. The Florida talks will focus on security guarantees for Ukraine amid efforts to implement the latest peace plan spearheaded by the Trump administration. The plan would freeze the war on its current front line and create demilitarized free economic zones in certain areas following troop withdrawal. Ukraine will also receive Article 5-style reassurances from its NATO allies, as well as preferential access to the European market as it joins the European Union. One of the key points of the plan stipulates that Ukraine must hold an election shortly after it is signed. Most of the proposed points are largely agreed upon, though not all details have been shared publicly. On his way to Florida, Zelenskyy met with Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney, who pledged an additional $2.5 billion of economic aid for Ukraine. In an interview with TVP World, senior fellow at the Atlantic Council, Diane said the ball is now in Putin's court, and for the time being, there is little incentive for the Russian leader to pursue peace. She warned that any deal will be difficult to achieve unless strong international pressure forces Putin to end his war of aggression.
It's all very one-sided. And, you know, there's no way that Putin from yesterday or before was ever going to strike a deal that would be marked by the anniversary of when the Soviet Union fell apart because they capitulated. So, and because in large measure, the first country that left the Soviet Union was Ukraine. And so he bears that grudge. And so, you know, I think we've got a situation where hopefully Zelenskyy and Trump will come up with something, Trump that will fully endorse something. And that will make a difference. And then Trump will have to force and demand that Putin responds. And then if not, we've got to have the tomahawks, the pressure, more sanctions. The Europeans have to start to arrest all the shadow boats carrying oil. I mean, he's not got pressure on him at this point.
Parliamentary elections are underway in Kosovo, with nationalist Prime Minister Albin Kurti's party seeking a majority to end a year-long political deadlock that has paralyzed parliament and delayed international funding. The vote comes after months of failed coalition talks, which prompted President Vjosa Osmani to dissolve parliament in November and call an early election. Kosovo's opposition parties have refused to govern with Kurti, criticizing his handling of relations with Western allies and his approach to the country's ethnically divided north, where a Serb minority lives. To woo voters, Kurti has pledged an additional month's worth of salary per year for public sector workers, €1 billion per year in capital investment, and the establishment of a new prosecution unit to fight organized crime. Electing a new government is critical. Lawmakers must elect a new president in April and ratify €1 billion in loan agreements from the European Union and the World Bank that will expire in the coming months. According to latest reports, Moscow has deployed nuclear-capable hypersonic missiles in neighboring Belarus, placing NATO countries on high alert. The country's leader, Alexander Lukashenko, insists the move has been purely defensive. But the recent hybrid warfare activities conducted jointly by Minsk and Moscow have meant European leaders are unlikely to be placated by these statements. Our defense correspondent Zuzanna Jurek has this story.
Does Belarus house the Russian nuclear-capable hypersonic ballistic Oreshnik missile? It appears so, according to US experts whose conclusions are corroborated by American intelligence. According to the researchers' analysis of satellite imagery as cited by Reuters press agency, the missile, which has a range of 5,500 kilometers, is likely deployed at a former airbase in eastern Belarus, near the city of Krychav. When discussing the deployment on December 17th, Belarusian leader Alexander Lukashenko said the move is part of Minsk and Moscow's proactive defense efforts.
Нам надо реагировать. Дальше нас поддерживает Россия.
Belarus and Russia are implementing a set of strategic deterrence measures. This includes the deployment of the Russian component of a regional force group on our territory in the event of an escalation of the conflict. Armed forces have been designated several dozen thousand personnel in western Russia who will immediately join the military struggle as a second echelon.
But as demonstrated by what Moscow continues to insist is a special military operation in Ukraine, Russia will scream about Western aggression while playing offense.
2024, Putin announced mirroring actions when we knew that some strategic new weapons will be passed in Germany. That was the moment then the talk about Oreshnik and Belarus started. That's why it is important to understand that it's not just a bluff, it's a part of strategic game against the West.
But while Moscow paves the way for joint military build-up, Minsk doesn't stay indebted to its big brother.
According to our intelligence, the equipment that is used for strikes against Ukraine and located in Belarus along the border is also mounted on residential buildings. Antennas and other equipment helping to guide Shahed drones toward targets in our western regions are literally put on the roofs of ordinary five-story apartment blocks. This is an absolute disregard for human life.
But though Minsk continues to faithfully tread behind the Kremlin, exiled opposition activists note that military alignment may not be the ultimate security guarantor for the regime.
Lukashenko's defense minister predicts social upheaval in the country due to the cost of military procurement. He said that without Lukashenko's authorization, on the very same day, 4 new Su-30 SM-2 fighter jets purchased from Russia, costing $50 million each, landed in Belarus. Spending to support the war has already led to a decline in industry and agricultural production.
For now, experts note that the newly acquired nuclear warhead is supposed to send a message, not just to the West.
We have two levels on what this topic is working. First is the domestic level to threaten people. This is one, but very significant one.
Equally, though the two dictatorships try to send out a message of strength, it does appear that the threats stop at verbiage alone. For TVP World, Zuzanna Jurek.
As the Christmas season winds down and the New Year approaches, many groups are stepping up their efforts to raise funds for charity. In Hungary, firefighters have long been known for their involvement with fundraising initiatives, but now competition has emerged in the form of a group of metalworkers in Budapest who have just revealed their latest fundraising calendar.
In a Budapest workshop, metal worker János Bocs sheds his heavy gear and steps in front of an industrial fan, usually used to cool red-hot steel, now blowing in his hair for a calendar photo shoot.
We're not these perfect, bustly poster guys, but real people. Maybe that's why it's so popular.
Their first calendar last year sold about 100 copies, raising enough to buy a smartboard for a local school. This year, after local media coverage, the team says they've already received around 1,000 pre-orders. The workers say the humor and honesty are what make the photos stand out.
This is the raw reality. These are honest pictures. This is us.
And Somoj jokes their physiques might not fit the usual calendar mold, but that's exactly the point.
Any man under 100 kilos is just a bookmark. We have real male bodies.
Beyond raising money for schools, the team hopes the project will inspire more young people to learn metallurgy, a trade they say needs fresh recruits.
If only 5 or 6 more people go to study metallurgy because of this, then we'll be happy.
Well, the new calendar goes on sale early next year, with all profits heading straight into Hungarian classrooms.
Polish Christmas ornaments are prized around the world and dominate many foreign markets. The United States remains the biggest market, receiving more than half of Poland's ornament exports. Alex Zemlinsky reports on how today's detailed designs grew out of hardship and tradition.
These beautiful works of art are handmade in Poland. But before they turn into glass figurines, they are lumps of glass, which are then transformed into dazzling holiday decorations. Poland has become a key player in the global market for festive decorations, relying on traditional styles and methods.
You really need to do this with passion, to put your heart into the glass. Otherwise, you're not a glass blower, you're just a worker handling glass. But if you put your heart into it, the glass will give back what you put in.
The manufacturing process is extremely precise. It begins with work in the blowing shop, where shapes are blown from soda glass at temperatures exceeding 1,800 degrees Fahrenheit. To create soda glass, one needs sand, lots of quartz sand, which Poland has in abundance.
We have quite a lot of quartz sand in Poland, because not only is our Baltic coast covered with quartz sand, which is why we have such beautiful beaches, but we also have it underground. And of course, most of this sand is under Krosno, where the glassworks are.
But where and how did we start decorating Christmas trees with ornaments? The tradition originated in Germany, just as putting up Christmas trees did. It was in 1847 that a man named Hans Greiner, who lived and worked in the glassworks in Lausche, created the first ornaments.
Hans had several children, and his wife and he lived on one salary, so he couldn't afford to buy the things that used to be hung on Christmas trees: candy, gingerbread, cookies, dried fruit. So he decided he'd go to work and make something himself, and he actually blew out his first baubles. There were several of them. The neighbors came and asked, "Hans, where did you get such beautiful ornaments?" He said, "I made them myself." "So make them for us too." And so he did, for his neighbors, then for others, then for others. And so, from village to village, from village to city, the word began to spread that now beautiful glass ornaments were being hung on Christmas trees.
It was in the 19th century, with the development of glassmaking, that glass ornaments became widespread in Poland. Today, the United States is the #1 importer of Polish ornaments, with a turnover of almost $19 million. This accounts for over 50% of all Polish exports in this category for 2024.
We are among the leading countries producing Christmas baubles. We're in the top 5, and in fact, I would even say we're in the top 3, because the largest number of Christmas baubles sold worldwide are from Poland, Germany, and the Czech Republic, which are the largest producers.
We have already made baubles for all the presidential chancelleries that functioned in our time and other institutions. Generally, during these 30 years, our products have gone to practically every continent, as we used to check it out for ourselves out of curiosity.
So where else do Polish ornaments make their way in time for the holidays? Apart from Christmas trees in the US, Polish ornaments can be found in Germany, Austria, the Netherlands, Armenia, as well as Australia, Tanzania, Costa Rica, and Albania. Polish Christmas ornaments, renowned for their intricate craftsmanship and hand-painted detail, have become cherished holiday decorations around the world, bringing a touch of Polish tradition and festive artistry to homes far beyond the country's borders. Alex Semlinski, TVP World.
And that's all for now. Thank you for watching, and please stay with us here on TVP World.